In the annals of music history, few partnerships burned as brightly or as briefly as Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones. Together, they crafted albums that shattered records, defined eras, and turned pop music into a global religion. But behind the sequined gloves and Grammy speeches lay a relationship fraying at the seams, poisoned by ego, ambition, and a secret Quincy Jones vowed never to reveal until his final days. This is the untold story of how two titans climbed to the pinnacle of fame, only to destroy their bond in the shadow of greatness. The year was 1978. Michael Jackson, then 19, was a man trapped between identities. To the world, he was the spunky lead of the Jackson 5, a relic of Motown's bubblegum era. But behind closed doors, he seethed with restless ambition. He'd outgrown the squeaky clean image, the matching outfits, the choreography that felt more like a cage than art. He craved reinvention, a metamorphosis. Enter Quincy Jones, 45, a jazz virtuoso turned producer whose fingerprints were already on classics like Frank Sinatra's Fly Me to the Moon and Leslie Gore's It's My Party. Their meeting on the set of The Wiz was accidental fate. Jackson, cast as the Scarecrow, was timid off camera, but electric in performance. Jones later recalled, he'd slouch in his chair between takes, quiet as a mouse. But when the cameras rolled, boom, that kid became a supernova. Jones saw what others missed: Jackson's hunger. At night after filming, Jackson would corner Jones, playing him demos on a battered cassette player. One track, a funky groove called Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, made Jones sit bolt upright. "You wrote this?" he asked, incredulous. Jackson nodded, eyes blazing. "I've got 100 more, Ma," he said. But the music industry scoffed. Executives at Epic Records dismissed Jackson as a has-been child star. Jones fought fiercely, staking his reputation on the project. "I told them, this kid's gonna change the game," he later told Rolling Stone. "They laughed, so I said, fine, laugh your way to the bank." The off-the-wall sessions were a baptism by fire. Jackson, insecure yet obsessive, demanded 30 takes for a single vocal run. Jones, the perfectionist, pushed harder. "You're singing like you're scared of the mic," he'd bark. "Own it, scream it." For Rock With You, Jones forced Jackson to record barefoot, chasing the raw, intimate tone of Marvin Gaye. "He hated it," laughed engineer Bruce Swedian. But when he heard the playback, Michael cried, said it sounded like liquid gold. The album's 1979 release was a seismic shift. Off the Wall sold 10 million copies, making Jackson the first solo artist with 4 top 10 singles from one album. But success bred tension. At the Grammys, when Don't Stop lost Best R&B Song, Jackson stormed out, muttering, "They'll regret this." Jones found him pacing the parking lot. "Kid, awards don't define you," he said. Jackson shot back, "Yes, they do. And I'll make sure they never forget me again." If Off the Wall was a spark, Thriller was a wildfire, one that nearly consumed them both. By 1982, Jackson was no longer Quincy's protege. He was a co-captain, demanding creative control. The Billie Jean demo, a brooding bass line Jackson wrote in his Encino living room, became their first battleground. Jones hated it. "It's too dark, too repetitive," he argued. Jackson refused to budge. "This is my story," he hissed. "A girl accusing me of fathering her child. You don't get it." For weeks, they stalemated. Then at 3 a.m., Jackson snuck into the studio, re-recording the track with engineer Bill Bottrell. "He wanted that bass line to sound like a heartbeat," Bottrell recalled. "We tweaked it 50 times. When Quincy heard it, he threw his coffee cup. But damn, he knew it was genius." The Thriller video was another rift. Jackson mortgaged his Havenhurst estate to fund the $500,000 zombie epic, a sum CBS refused to pay. Jones warned, "You're risking everything." Jackson's retort, "Either I go big or I disappear." The gamble paid off. Thriller became the first video inducted into the National Film Registry, but privately Jones seethed. He stopped listening, acted like God handed him the damn album. The cracks spread. During the We Are the World sessions in 1985, Jackson arrived hours late, flanked by bodyguards. Jones snapped, "You're holding up Dylan, Springsteen, everyone." Jackson, reclining in a throne-like chair, replied coolly, "They'll wait. I'm the king of pop now." Jones later confided to a friend, "That's when I knew we were done. That's when I..." By bad, the power dynamic had flipped. Jackson, now 29, marched into sessions with pre-produced demos, instructing Jones like an underling. Smooth Criminal ignited their worst clash. Jackson envisioned a noir jazz hybrid inspired by 1940s gangster films. Jones insisted on a disco beat. "You're stuck in the 70s, Jackson shouted. Jones stormed out, slamming the studio door. Jackson finished the track alone and blasted it at ear-splitting volume outside Jones's hotel room at 2 a.m. Money poisoned things further. Jackson discovered Jones earned 5% royalties on Thriller, a standard cut, but galling to the self-proclaimed biggest star on earth. He demanded Jones forfeit his share for bad. "You're stealing from my children," Jackson screamed. Jones fired back, "You'd be singing jingles without me." The final blow came in 1990. At a Neverland Ranch party, Jones overheard Jackson mocking him to a Sony exec. "Quincy's a dinosaur. I don't need him." Jones left without a word. Days later, Jackson's lawyer sent a letter. Mr. Jones's services are no longer required. Their split was a public wound. Jones gave interviews calling Jackson delusional. Jackson retaliated with Jam, a dangerous track many interpreted as a diss. "They want to stop me, but I'm all fired up." In 2017, Jones's memoir, Q on Producing, dropped a bombshell. He accused Jackson of stealing credit for Billie Jean and Thriller. "I wrote those bass lines," Jones claimed. "Michael just hummed melodies." The Jackson estate sued, calling the claims lies from a bitter old man. But in a chilling 2018 interview, months before his death, Jones hinted at darker secrets. "Michael had demons. He'd call me at 3 a.m., crying about lawsuits, pills, the press. But I couldn't save him. Nobody could." Today, their legacy is a mosaic of brilliance and brokenness. Thriller still sells 100,000 copies yearly, and Jones mentored icons from Aretha Franklin to Kendrick Lamar. But in quiet moments, both hinted at regret. Jones once mused, "We were lightning in a bottle." But lightning, it always vanishes. As for Jackson, in a vault at Neverland, engineers found an unreleased track titled Quincy's Ghost. The lyrics, scribbled in red ink, read, "You built me up, then watched me fall. Now your shadow's creeping through my hall." Their story is a cautionary tale of how ambition can ignite genius, then reduce it to ashes. Two legends forever bound by the music they made and the partnership they couldn't save.